In recent days, there has arisen a variety of views, many challenging the truths that made our country's founding documents. This has caused a great diversity of ideas in culture, changing the American mind from what it once was.
In all honesty, I think just respect everybody. I guess
I believe the Declaration of Independence is relevant today, and if so, how?
Yes, it was written a long time ago when everythings were different. And, it's been revised several times since it was made, but I think some of the core beliefs, still hold up. Like everyone should be equal, believe what they want. Although it didn't start out that way, we've come a long way, but things could get better, but some of the core principles are fine, but it's relevant as long as people understand that it's not something to 100% stick with.
And then, what does it mean to be an American?
I think that, usually we attach freedom to that.
Yep.
Freedom is what it means to be American, but for me, I've only been an American, so I think it's a lot of those things you can't describe in who you are and how you live your life that you don't know until you're not in America.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep, for sure.
For the American nation to flourish, the people must be educated in what the responsibilities of an American citizen is. We cannot become apathetic citizens under our representative government, for when this happens, it is the people giving the government their liberties. Our responsibility as American citizens is to be educated in the affairs of our time and to support the truth of America's governmental system. Along with this, the nation must be well educated in our nation's history, for this can prevent our nation from making past mistakes. If you were to ask, many Americans would not be able to name the principles in our Declaration of Independence. The Declaration's principles were the reason the American people separated from Great Britain in the first place. This shows us the importance of this document, yet half of the Americans today could not say it from memory. A quote from one of our founding fathers is, "This was the object of the Declaration of Independence, not to find out new principles or new arguments, never thought of not merely to say things which have never been said before, but to place before mankind the common sense of the subject in terms so plain and firm as to command their assent, and to justify ourselves in the independent state we were compelled to take, neither aiming at the originality of the principle or sentiment, nor yet copied from any particular or previous writing. It was intended to be an expression of the American mind, and to give to that expression the proper tone and spirit called for by the occasion." Thomas Jefferson, May 8, 1825. What is the mind of American today, and how can we return to the principles that made America's moral system? We, the American people, must recognize our present identity confusion, while remembering our past convictions and repent. Then recover our God-given identity as responsible citizens.
Many agendas have been pushed into America's culture, changing the thoughts and beliefs of Americans. Secular ideas work to take America away from the fundamental principles that shaped its first document. The first idea that has been vital to the destruction of the American mind is atheism. Atheism is disbelief or lack of belief in the existence of God. Removing God from society is the key to destruction. Once God has been taken out of focus, we will crumble as a nation. Man's law also falls in with atheism. Man's law can be conceived in the ethical sense as the moral law based on the conscience. Man's law is just a secular way of deciding if something is right or wrong, mostly based on what your conscience thinks. But your conscience can be manipulated. That is what is wrong with this idea. Next, we have socialism. Socialism also plays a big role in the destruction of America. Socialism believes that we should have equal pay between jobs. Having equal pay gives no incentive for working hard, therefore no one will work hard, leading to economic collapse. Something else that will destroy the United States is dependency on the state or government. Relying on the government for everything creates a lack of individuality. With the state in control, all business will be state regulated and destroy all small family businesses. Being reliant on the state gives the government a certain amount of power. Therefore, you are under their control and are only allowed permitted freedoms. Along with being reliant on the state comes regulated rights. The government becomes the highest authority. Since the state now grants you rights, this means they can also take them away to benefit themselves. With this, being dependent on the state gives the government all the power. Since the people are dependent on the state, committing an act against the government shall result in the removal of your permitted freedoms. Lastly, we have relativism. Relativism is the doctrine that knowledge, truth, and morality exist in relation to culture, society, and are not absolute. Relativism is the belief that knowledge, truth, and morality is defined by our always changing culture. Therefore, nothing is absolute. This means that there is no absolute truth, leaving people lost and confused. However, this is not how our nation was originally created to operate. We can see through our founding documents what is government's given purpose. There are 13 principles that can be separated into 3 categories that give proof to what this purpose is.
The separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. America's foundation was established upon a Judeo-Christian value system, and America's laws were founded upon the principle of the Ten Commandments. The Judeo-Christian value system restricts government from superseding their duty to serve and protect the people. It also requires personal responsibility from the people to self-govern themselves under God. We hold these truths to be self-evident. The truths found in the Declaration of Independence, such as equality among men and endowed inalienable rights, are self-evident, indicating that they have been fundamental, unwavering truths since the beginning of time. They cannot be changed or removed. They are perpetual. With a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence. The Founding Fathers recognized God as the highest sovereign being, and their faith in Him is displayed throughout the Declaration of Independence. God's existence is proved over the course of human events in history. The historical accounts of miraculous supernatural events throughout the first century of America is evidence of a higher power. America's success is found in her value system, which is rooted in biblical principles. And if a sparrow cannot fall to the ground without his notice, is it probable that an empire can rise without his aid? Benjamin Franklin. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with one another, the people have the right and responsibility to revise or to overthrow the government if the government becomes destructive. This country, with its institutions, belongs to the people who inhabit it. Whenever they shall grow weary of the existing government, they can exercise their constitutional right of amending it, or the revolutionary right to dismember it or overthrow it. Abraham Lincoln. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it. America has instituted a bottom-up form of government, meaning that her people hold the most power and civil government is the most limited. The people are to govern themselves, keep government accountable, and to rid of those who violate the Constitution. That these united colonies are, and of right, ought to be free and independent states. The United States of America are to be free and independent states. When obtaining limited civil government, it is easier for people to hold it accountable and protect it from tyranny. When civil government is limited, the independent states have more power to individually conduct themselves by the consent of the governed people. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. Equality, the quality or state of being equal, among each other, in our rights, and before God. America's modern-day government has changed the meaning of equality. Equality is now defined by race, gender, employment, education, etc. These social statuses are not barriers or problems, but instead they are part of the propaganda that socialists push to divide people. Socialists label their causes equality to make excuses for their actions of the minority races. That they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights. Unalienable rights are the rights that are endowed to us by God. They cannot be taken away from us by external forces. These unalienable rights go into effect as soon as a person is born. Our founding fathers understood the significant value of our unalienable rights, and that is why they fought to make sure that these rights would be protected against external government. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. The protection of rights ensures that the rights of the person being served will not be ignored or infringed upon by the government. This affirmation and protection is reflected in all aspects of the service process, from service initiation to discharge and follow-up. The 21st century American government has come to the realization that the American people have extensive freedoms and power. External civil government is greedy for power, and they desire to take away our freedoms unless we subject ourselves to their unconstitutional law. Our founding fathers understood that the natural sin nature of man, and they foresaw the destruction that would be the result of a power-hungry government. This is why they created the Constitution, to protect Americans' rights and to limit civil government's power. That they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life. Human life is God-given, and the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being. Genesis 2:7. God created man with free will, a conscience, and unalienable rights. People are the only beings created in the image of God. All people have the right to live before and after birth. That they are endowed with their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty. All people are born with liberty. Freedom is not to do what we want, but to do what we ought. Abraham Lincoln. Our founding fathers gave Americans the liberty to be productive and conduct their businesses the way they see fit. They can create and experience trial and error, buy and sell their goods, and be educated and educate their children by their own choosing. That they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. People have the right to own property and other tangible goods, and to have private possession over those belongings. They are under the requirement to be responsible, self-governed stewards over what they own.
Learning from the past, our founding fathers aspired for not a king, one single power, but instead for a civil government to be divided into 3 separate branches: legislative, executive, and judicial. Governmental limitation restricts government from interfering or ignoring people's natural rights. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution lists the government's jurisdiction, and what is not found in Article 1, Section 8 is left to the states to conduct or the people, respectively. Government consists of elected representatives chosen by the people, and they bear the responsibility to defend the rights of the citizens and properly represent the will of the governed. Many people do not see the Declaration of Independence as a religious document, or they claim that the Founding Fathers were not Christian. However, this is not the case. we see in the Declaration itself 4 different acknowledgments of God. The first, in the Declaration of Independence, is that we are endowed by our Creator. Certain rights are given to us by God. The second is the law of nature and of nature's God. The third acknowledgement is the supreme judge of the land. God is the ultimate authority over the world. Lastly, we see in the Declaration of Independence is the divine providence. We have the protection of our God. We see how the Founding Fathers understood the principles that God has given in the Bible and lived out in their lives. They saw the importance of building a firm foundation for the American biblical principles. We, the American people, must ground ourselves in these truths to live out these Christian principles and preserve the original American mind. To conclude, the various patriots that founded our great nation created a value system that to this day has been unmatched. Our value system is exceptional because of its selfless system. Instead of forcing power, control, and civil government success, it prioritizes the rights, will, and welfare of the self-governed people. Our Founding Fathers quite literally turned traditional government operations upside down. Because of the inherent sin nature of mankind, Americans have become more and more idolatrous, allowing the government to take their rights and exchanging it for a life of ease, which lacks responsibility to govern themselves. There are 3 things that are responsibility as American citizens. The first, we need to be informed. We need to read, study, and know the Constitution. We need to know how government is supposed to operate. We must know when the people in government are becoming unconstitutional and what their purpose is supposed to be. Therefore, we must understand what our rights are and how they're to be protected. Second, we need to be inspired. We need to gather information and be inspired and begin to inspire others. One way you can gather inspiration is through watching this video. You also can share this video with others to begin to inspire others as well. Thirdly, we need to be involved. It is our responsibility to stay involved in what is happening in government, who is in high power and what their motives are, and what their plan is to do. It is our responsibility to keep government accountable and throw out those who violate the Constitution, and to re-elect people who uphold the Constitution.